Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's second upload of the day, I'm bringing you guys a 12-team half PPR mock draft from the 11th overall selection. Now, in this video, I'm going to be talking about both my picks and as well as the picks going on around me, so you guys can get a further understanding of where I believe players should be going and my assessment on all players in the draft. So if you guys are not in a 12-team league or pick 11 in the draft, you can still listen to the whole thing because I give my analysis on a lot of the players inside of the draft so that you guys can get that edge to win your 2020 Fantasy Football League. If you want an even further edge, please make sure to click that subscribe button down below. I produce content every single day to help you guys win that Fantasy Football Championship. And if you want some further advice, check out patreon.com/notoriousfantasy for my draft guide. I will also be answering questions on there instantly. If you ask me a question on there, I always answer within the hour. So this mock draft, like I said, is 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wideouts, a tight end, flex, kicker, defense, and 6 bench spots. Originally, I said that it's a 12-team half PPR mock draft from the 11th overall spot, and we are going up against the composite ADP of Fantasy Pros. So composite ADP, Yahoo Sports, Fantrax, Fantasy Football Calculator, as well as composite Best Ball ADP. So we can get a good idea of what the drafts are actually going to look like at the end of this month when a majority of people are drafting. I know people draft at all different times, so I try to make as many videos as possible to help you guys win your league, even if you are just drafting 2 days from now, even if you're just drafting later today. I want to try to help you guys all win your league. So looking at the draft board, the first pick of the draft was Christian McCaffrey, followed by Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, Michael Thomas, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Devontae Adams, and DeAndre Hopkins. A very typical start to fantasy drafts this season. A lot of running backs flying off the board instantly, and then 3 wide receivers inside of the first round. Typically, you're going to see 3 to 4 wide receivers. I'd say actually 2 to 4 wide receivers go inside of the first round in a 12-team league. Now, the next pick after ours is the 12th pick. This is where we typically see guys go for the double wide receiver strategy. They go 2 wide receivers in a row to get 2 elite talents at the position. I talked about DeAndre Hopkins a couple of days ago and how I don't love his ADP, and he really is screeching up here into the first round. I don't really like him ahead of guys like Julio Jones or Tyreek Hill. So looking at the draft board, or the players still available right now, best running back available according to Fantasy Pros expert rankings is CEH, but I am not on that CEH train of drafting him right here. I personally think there are other picks. I think CEH is still a great running back and should be able to have a fantastic year in 2020, but personally, he would not be my first round pick here. As you guys know, if you have been following me for a while, I am a huge advocate of going the running back position at least twice in the first 3 rounds of the draft. I just think that gives you the best edge to winning your fantasy football draft due to the fact that the wide receiver position is balls deep, whereas the running back position is very, very shallow, like a virgin. So you know what I'm saying? You're talking about winky, winky, winky. So if we're talking about here, I think I'm going to go ahead and go running back like the typical move. Now, there's a bunch of guys you could pick here. You actually could pick CEH. I wouldn't even argue against it. He wouldn't be my pick here, though. Nick Chubb, Miles Sanders, Kenyon Drake, Josh Jacobs, Austin Eckler are all good picks here for me. So we're actually going to go ahead first and pick my favorite running back out of the group, and that is Josh Jacobs, running back of the Las Vegas Raiders. I also love Austin Eckler, so I would not argue picking either of those guys in this spot. I think Josh Jacobs has a whole shit ton of upside. I think there's potential for him to be the rushing leader in the NFL, being the guy that wins the rushing title and being a guy that absolutely tears it up this season in Las Vegas, with the Mike Mayock coming out and telling us that he is going to be trying to get Josh Jacobs involved in the pass-catching game. I believe Josh Jacobs could really ascend to be that elite talent that we wanted to be this season. After Josh Jacobs, we see Nick Chubb come off the board, followed by Tyreek Hill. So interesting enough, we did not see the double wide receiver strategy like typical on Fantasy Pros. We typically see that happen. So I wonder if pick 9 and pick 10, who have already drafted a wide receiver already, will go ahead and run that 0 RB start, going 2 wide receivers off the rip. Now, looking at the board right now, we could pick Julio Jones, but I'm more of on the running back boat. So you can go ahead and go with any of these guys. Like I said, Kenyon Drake, Austin Eckler, Miles Sanders, and CEH. Personally, the best player that I like here is Austin Eckler, and he would normally be my pick. If you guys watch yesterday, or if you guys watch tomorrow's video, I really talk about how much I love Austin Eckler in a hot takes video. So we're going to go ahead and pick a different guy here and go with I don't even know why the fuck did I speak like a dumbass right there. Kenyon Drake, running back of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I know him and Miles Sanders are probably the riskiest picks at this spot. CH and Aaron Jones would be the safer kind of picks for me. Miles Sanders definitely safer than Kenyon Drake, but at the end of the day, I really love Kenyon Drake's upside in this Arizona offense. I think while it is a high-flying team, it is dubbed the air raid offense of Cliff Kingsbury. But the air raid system, while it is called the air raid offense, doesn't mean that Kenyon Drake won't be involved in the running game. He was jamming the ball down defenses' throats, giving them the good old 1-2 Mayweather every single week when he was traded there after being on the Dolphins, and he looked fan-fucking-tastic. He looked very involved for the team. He is a great pass-catching running back as well, so I would argue that Kenyon Drake may have the highest upside here. All of these guys have super high upside, top 10 upside, if not top 6 or top 5. So I would go with Kenyon Drake here. Personally, the pick normally would be Austin Eckler, but like I always say, got to make sure you diversify your team. If you're playing in a bunch of different leagues, don't just draft the same guys in every single draft, because if that guy ends up sucking wee-wee, you're going to be absolutely screwed at the running back position or at that spot because you own the guy in every single league. So we're going to go here and draft Kenyon Drake, running back of the Arizona Cardinals. So after our pick, obviously, we got to wait a while, but we don't actually have to wait a while since we're on Fantasy Pros and it just instantly does it. Hopefully you guys do enjoy this format. I may try and do some drafts on Yahoo or ESPN as we get a bit closer to the actual draft season, but we're already approaching pretty fast, so I hope you guys have been enjoying these videos. So after we went with Kenyon Drake, Lamar Jackson came off the board, followed by Julio Jones, Miles Sanders, Chris Godwin, Travis Kelce, Aaron Jones, CEH, Austin Eckler, George Kittle, Pat Mahomes. The two teammates go back-to-back. Michael Jordan, 96-97. Kenny Galladay after that, followed by Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette, Todd Gurley, Chris Carson, Allen Robinson, Odell Beckham Jr., Melvin Gordon, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Amari Cooper. So based upon what I was talking about earlier about the double wide receiver strategy off the rip of the draft, we see the pick at the 109, the 9th overall selection, Ayuk of the Storm, pick Devontae Adams, followed by Julio Jones and Juju Smith-Schuster. So they went with the zero running back strategy thus far. Obviously, the zero running back strategy is pretty much 4 or 5 or 6 rounds of going with zero running backs in a row. This is more of a modified zero running back strategy, but we'll see if they will go ahead and continue on not drafting running backs. Over here, we see 1, 2, 3, 4 teams go with zero wide receivers through the first 3 rounds, which I actually think is a hell of a strategy, even in a league where you're just starting 2 running backs, because obviously you can start one as your flex. Out of all these picks, the pick I like the most is probably Austin Eckler's value at the 210. That is amazing value there for Mr. Austin Eckler. I don't like Odell Beckham Jr. in the 3rd round. I don't like Amari Cooper. I don't think that Odell Beckham Jr. is a bad player, and I don't think Amari Cooper is a bad player, but I do not think their situation is all that good, especially Odell Beckham Jr. is with a very, very run-heavy coach in Cleveland. Amari Cooper is just a very hot and cold. He's like icy hot, sponsored by Shaq. Some games he's hot, some games he's cold, and you just don't really want to deal with that. Another favorite pick I actually like here is Mr. Leonard Fournette in the 3rd round. I'm really starting to get high on him. Not necessarily think he's going to be some type of a top 10 back, but the 3rd round value for a guy who got so much opportunity last year is definitely a great value in the 3rd round. Also, very typical to note that 2 tight ends came off the board in the 2nd round, as well as 2 quarterbacks. Typically, you're going to see those 4 guys, Kelce, Kittle, Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson, go around the 2nd or the 3rd round. So now it is our turn to make our selection in the 3rd round. Thus far, we have Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake. So we can either keep hopping on the running back train or hop a bit off. And here's where I would hop a bit off and wait until the 4th round if I wanted to snag another running back, because I believe that right here, there's not really too much of a drop-off between these guys. And if the guy behind me takes one, I won't be too pissed at the guy that I get in the 4th round. So we're going to go ahead and dip into the wide receiver core here. And there's a bunch of pretty good picks here. I like Adam Thielen, I like DJ Moore, Robert Woods, and Calvin Ridley, and Cooper Kupp. But to me, there's one clear pick here, and it is Mr. DJ Moore. Now, I pick him in pretty much every single draft, so we're going to go ahead and diversify and go with Adam Thielen. I love DJ Moore due to the fact that the guy has immense upside in Carolina. I think that under Teddy Bridgewater, it will be just slightly better than under Kyle Allen, and DJ Moore really performed last season under Allen, who's not the greatest quarterback. Teddy Bridgewater, obviously a step up there, and I think that this offense is going to be high flying in 2020. I think DJ Moore is going to have yet another great season, but Adam Thielen now returns with Kirk Cousins under center with no Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs got his ass shipped off to Buffalo to the freezing weather, and Adam Thielen is going to be able to eat in Minnesota. He was always Kirk Cousins' favorite target. He was always a guy that's going to be getting fed the ball, and with Kevin Stefanski leaving for the Cleveland Browns, I believe they're going to kind of retract being the most run-heavy team or one of the most run-heavy teams in the NFL, and decrease to maybe like a top 10 run-heavy team, which will be giving Adam Thielen even more targets. I think Adam Thielen has an excellent season with Mr. You like that? Kirk Cousins in 2020. So after Adam Thielen comes Mark Andrews and then Cooper Kupp. Mark Andrews is one of my favorite third or fourth round selections. I love getting him here, but if I don't get him, I typically wait until the later rounds to go ahead and snag a tight end. I'm not about the middle round tight end kind of players. So now it is our turn to make our fourth round selection at the 402 through 3 rounds. We have Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake. I don't know why I can't pronounce the name right now. Kenyon Drake, as well as Adam Thielen. 3 guys with different bye weeks, which is pretty good, obviously. But I don't go ahead and look too heavily into the bye week since a lot of these players are going to be shifting in and out of your lineup due to the fact that they may end up getting traded off your team. If you're a very heavy trader, I wouldn't look at the bye weeks at all. If you are not and you're really opposed to trading, then I would look at it more. But at the end of the day, when you're drafting later in the draft and you're looking at the bye weeks and all this shit, a lot of these guys are just going to be ending up being cut off your team by the time it's week 8 when Kenyon Drake has a bye and you need to go ahead and put another running back into your roster. So looking at the board right now, James Conner still available, followed by Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, Jonathan Taylor, Mark Ingram, David Montgomery, and then for wide receivers, we see DJ Moore, Robert Woods, A.J. Brown, Calvin Ridley. At quarterback, Dak, Russell Wilson, and Kyler Murray are still available. On a tight end, Zach Ertz would be the best player still available. Like I said, I really wait on quarterback as well as tight end in these drafts. You typically don't catch me leaving the draft with an early round quarterback or tight end unless it's one of those early 3 guys at the tight end position. I typically really lock in my strategy of waiting at quarterback. Now, don't come into the draft thinking I need to wait at quarterback because Pat Mahomes is there in the 4th round. You click that accept button every single time and draft that motherfucker. But in the 2nd round, that is a little too early for me. So looking right here, we can either go with a running back or a wide receiver. Here, normally I would go with the running back position, but I want to go ahead and switch it up and see what my team looks like if I start off 2 running backs as well as 2 wide receivers. So that's the pick we are going to be making here, and it is one of these wide receivers. I like DJ Moore the most out of these guys. I think him, Robert Woods, Calvin Ridley as well. Those are the 4 guys or the 3 guys that I would really be looking at here at this draft pick. It's really pick your poison here with any of these guys. Personally, I like DJ Moore the most out of the group in Carolina. Like I talked about, I think this offense is going to be good, and with a not so hot defense, they are going to have to be passing in these games, and I think that Teddy Bridgewater is going to be able to get it done with Mr. DJ Moore of the Carolina Panthers for 2020 fantasy football. So as we wait for our 5th round pick, I would like to ask you guys, could please go down below and smack that subscribe button if you have enjoyed thus far. It's free, and I put out that content every single day. And if you guys are listening on the podcast app, please make sure to subscribe on there as well. I would really appreciate it, or click follow if you're listening on Spotify. So after we went with DJ Moore, Le'Veon Bell came out the board, followed by James Conner, Calvin Ridley, A.J. Brown, Cortland Sutton, Zach Ertz, Russell Wilson, Robert Woods, Keenan Allen, Mark Ingram, Tyler Lockett, Devontae Parker, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, T.Y. Hilton, Devin Singletary, Jonathan Taylor, Baby Chark, DJ Chark, David Johnson, and Stephon Diggs to close out the picks before it is our selection at the 5-11. Interesting enough, Russell Wilson comes just 2 rounds after the first 2 quarterbacks got picked in the 2nd round. So that's going to be pretty typical. Now, the real question is, when will the next couple of quarterbacks come off the board? In some leagues, you're going to be seeing a guy like Russell Wilson come off the board, and then a bunch of owners just completely shit their pants, the guys drafting with you, and then you see Josh Allen come off the board, then you see Matt Ryan, you see all these guys fly off the board. That may happen. Or in other leagues, some guys will stay content, like I advise you guys to do. Stay content, take the value on the board, and then draft the quarterback later when everyone else is panicking looking for a running back or a wide receiver. So we have a very, 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 very balanced draft right now. Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake are 2 running backs, and we have 2 wide receivers in DJ Moore and Adam Thielen. To me, the pick right here is pretty obvious, and we're going to go with running back David Montgomery of the Chi-Town Bears. I think that David Montgomery is going to have an excellent season in 2020 after disappointing owners in 2019. He was kind of a disappointment since many believed he was the second coming of fantasy football running back, Jesus Christ, and he just wasn't. But at the end of the day, it was due to the fact that he was given a decent amount of opportunity. I just don't think the team played very well, and I think with the defense stepping up more in 2020, we could see a much better run offense from Chicago, because they're not going to have to be passing the ball as much. And with Big Dick 9-inch Nick Foles as the starting quarterback, I believe that David Montgomery will have a lot more opportunity to run the ball since the guy won't be playing so shit at the quarterback position. So to me, David Montgomery is the easy pick here. He is like the easiest pick here by far. He was the only guy I was really looking at, and I'm very glad that he fell my way in the 5th round. He's pretty much a lock to be my 5th or 6th round pick based upon how I view his talent, as well as how good I think he will be in this Chicago offense in 2020. After we go David Montgomery, Dak Prescott comes off the board, followed by A.J. Green. A.J. Green, to me, is just a fucking waste of a pick. I do think he'll be fine, and if he stays healthy, he will be good for fantasy football, but the if he can stay healthy is a humongous ask for A.J. Green, a guy who spends more time inside of that blue tent outside of the field than actually on the goddamn field. So interesting to note, quarterback Dak Prescott came off the board, like I said, so it did take a bit of time after Russell Wilson to get to Dak Prescott. So maybe owners in this league, obviously we're drafting up against the computer, are not too worried and are not going to be shitting themselves during this draft and trying to obviously reach up and get that quarterback. I just resized myself on the top of the screen so you guys can see the draft board much easier as we get deeper into these drafts. So now looking at what to do next in the 6th round. Now I am kind of really not bought in on DeAndre Swift. I really am not super bought into on him. I'm not a guy who's going out there and outwardly drafting him, but I think in the 6th round here, I may just find him on one of my teams. I think I have to make sure that I do something right, which is to understand that if I don't like a guy, that I need to draft him in just one league, and I think that is DeAndre Swift. I see a case for him potentially being one of those guys that is elite at the running back position if Kerryon Johnson was to go down. And I think that even with Kerryon Johnson in there, if he develops a nice pass-catching role in that offense, he will happily slot into my flex and be pretty good for me. So I'm going to go with DeAndre Swift here. Not super bullish on it, but out of the other running backs, Cam Akers is also a risk. I like him as well as Kareem Hunt if you want to go with the safer type of pick, as well as James White. But here we're going to diversify the revenue a bit here and draft DeAndre Swift, running back out of Detroit. I don't love it, but I don't hate it anymore. I was really against DeAndre Swift, but I talked to Bush, which is about tomorrow's video, and we talked about or 2 days from now's video, and we talked about DeAndre Swift, and I kind of feel a little bit more likely to like him, but I don't think he's really going to be super involved in the running game, and he's really going to get all of his points out of the pass-catching opportunities there in Detroit. After we went with DeAndre Swift, the draft went as follows: Darren Waller, Kyler Murray, and Deshaun Watson, Hunter Henry, Raheem Mostert, Deebo Samuel, Tyler Higbee, Eazy-E, Evan Ingram, Josh Allen, Michael Gallup, Jarvis Landry, Cam Akers, Matt Ryan, Hollywood Brown, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Kareem Hunt, Tyler Boyd, Boyd, as well as Marlon Mack. So the draft did happen. The quarterbacks run did happen. These guys shit their pants. They got a bit tense, and they had a nice old Hershey squirt all over the draft and drafted a bunch of quarterbacks. Now, I knew this would happen. It happens in every single draft, but we are bold and we stay away from that. I'm pretty sure every team except for me has a quarterback. Yeah, that is true. So we can go ahead and continue to wait. This is the best position to be in, but just note in your league, if people are drafting multiple quarterbacks, which you shouldn't in a 12-team league, I would try to advise making sure once you feel like someone's going to start taking a quarterback to go ahead and select yours so that you're not left in the dust with a guy that you don't really like. So now looking at it, there's a bunch of solid wide receivers as well as a bunch of solid running backs still available. We have 4 running backs and only 2 wide receivers on the roster. So I feel like here we have to slap down and go ahead and get a wide receiver that I feel confident in being on our roster for 2020, and that is a simple pick here between Marvin Jones or Julian Edelman. It's pick your poison. Marvin Jones probably has the higher upside, but Julian Edelman has the safer floor, and here I think I'm going to go with Julian Edelman of the New England Deflatriots. I see a great season out of Julian Edelman again this season in my crystal ball. I have envisioned it, and I can see him being good with Cam Newton. I thought he would be fine with Jarrett Stidham, so I don't see why he would be any worse with Cam. Wham, bam, Cam Newton. So we're going to go ahead with Julian Edelman here. I do have Marvin Jones ranked ahead of him, but I want to go ahead and make sure my 3rd wide receiver here is safe, and in the 7th round, you cannot go wrong with Mr. Julian Edelman. At the 7th round pick at the 7-11, Sony Michel came off the board, followed by Ronaldo Jones. Don't be picking Sony Michel anymore. Clearly, the Patriots adding a new running back yesterday means that Sony Michel is not going to be healthy to start the season. He is on the PUP, physically unable to participate, and that means that he is not going to be any good this year. So he's just a wasted pick there in the 7th round, followed by Ronaldo Jones. So now we're going to probably go ahead and dip back into the running back well, unless we want to go ahead and get another wide receiver. But I think our best bet here is to go running back and then attack some of these more upside wide receivers later and go ahead and snag a guy like James White here, the best New England back right now. Obviously, we just drafted Julian Edelman. Now we're going to get James White, but I don't mind drafting 2 Patriots on my team, 2 guys from a team that I believe will be pretty good, and James White will be heavily involved in the pass-catching game. James White, one of the best pass-catching running backs in the NFL, and if Sony Michel is ending up not playing, I can see James White getting more touches in the rushing game, obviously, for James White. He's much more of a pass-catching back, but he is still very talented in both facets of the game, just not a super big guy, so you don't envision him being the in-between the tackles kind of running back, and that's why they brought in another running back yesterday. So looking at the draft board after we went ahead and went with Jimenez White, Mr. James White of the New England Patriots, we can see that we see Darius Geis come off the board, which is a wasted pick because of what that guy did. The motherfucker got cut. Now, he probably won't be in the NFL for another year or 2. Obviously, despicable act from Darius Geis. After that, we see Marvin Jones, followed by J.K. Dobbins, Phillip Lindsay, Kerryon Johnson, Brandon Cooks, 49ers defense. Worst pick of the draft, even though some dumbass already drafted Darius Geis. Will Fuller, Matt Breida, John Brown, Darius Slayton, Jordan Howard, Deontay Johnson, Jerry Jeudy, Christian Kirk, Keyshawn Vaughn, Darrell Henderson, Tariq Cohen, Jamison Crowder, and Tevin Coleman. This team only has 2 running backs. Very risky to be start the draft like that. Now we're in the 9th round, and the running backs have completely dried up like my coochie in the Sahara Desert. So I'm going to go ahead here and draft a wide receiver here in this round. Now there's a bunch of guys still available that I like, but to me, I'm going to go with my high upside pick of Mecole Hardman, wide receiver of the Kansas City Chiefs. I made a whole video talking about him as well as a couple other wide receivers in my must draft wide receivers part 2 just a couple of days ago. So make sure you guys check that out after this video. I'm very high on Mecole Hardman and not very high in the sky like my name was Josh Gordon. High because I believe Mecole Hardman has immense upside in this Kansas City offense. Obviously, one of the best passing offenses in the NFL, if not the best passing offense in the NFL with Patrick Mahomes. This guy is an absolute fucking speedster and likely could emerge as the number 2 guy behind Mr. Tyreek Hill on a high-flying offense, especially against some good matchups. He could be dangerous for your starting roster. Now, they're saying there was a 95% chance that Mecole Hardman would have been available in the next round, and there's a 100% chance that I am going to win this fucking league if I can get Mecole Hardman in the 9th round, so I'm okay reaching just 1 round by the website, but I think that Mecole Hardman's going to end up being like an 8th or 9th round pick come draft time in a couple of weeks. So, looking now, we could really go any way. The tight ends are kind of dissipating here at this point. The quarterbacks are as well, but it's fine because I know the quarterbacks that we like late. So, we're going to go ahead and snag our favorite late-round tight end, Hayden Hurst. I draft him in every league. Don't fucking fret me. I'm not going to fucking stop taking him. I love this guy. Most pass-heavy offense in the NFL. They're going to be slinging the rock all season long, and I just believe that Hayden Hurst is going to be an immensely valued tight end in fantasy football in 2020. So make sure you go ahead and draft Hayden Hurst for the Atlanta Falcons offense that is going to be humming all season long with a very, very bad defense, which is even worse than their defense that they had last season where the offense was humming pretty well as well. Here we are going to go ahead and look back at the draft board. Sorry for that pause. I had to drink some agua. If you guys have enjoyed this video thus far, please make sure to click that subscribe button. So after we went with tight end, Hayden Hurst, Latavius Murray came off the board, followed by Mike Williams, CeeDee Lamb, Sterling Shepard, 2 defenses, Larry Fitzgerald, Zach Moss, Justin Jefferson, Henry Ruggs, Alshon Jeffrey, Duke Johnson, Anthony Miller, Adrian Peterson, Tony Pollard, Chase Edmonds, Boston Scott, Jalen Reagor, Golden Tate, and Robbie Anderson. So now it's time to take yet another running back or wide receiver. That's what we'd be doing in these late rounds. You don't need 2 tight ends. You don't need 2 quarterbacks. So here we're going to go with a high upside pick in Antonio Gibson. I expect him to rise into about the 9th round by the time most drafts are happening of the Washington Redskins out of Memphis. I think that Antonio Gibson has immense upside here as well. I know I talk a whole lot about upside, but I don't think it'll happen instantly. I think it will take a couple of games for Adrian Peterson to be the workhorse back there, and then eventually Antonio Gibson will arise like my cock in the morning, and Antonio Gibson will be feared and be one of those guys that is a straight-up league winner for your fantasy football team. So make sure you snag Antonio Gibson, but understand that you're not going to be able to play him probably for the first 6 weeks of the season, because it'll take him a while to emerge and be that head honcho back in Washington. So after we went with Antonio Gibson, we'll probably dip into the wide receiver well. So after that, we saw Baltimore Ravens defense come off the board, followed by Rashad Penny, who I don't understand why anyone's drafted because the guy is on the PUP. Now, normally in the 12th round, my normal pick is locked and loaded to fire up on Mr. N'Keal Harry, but we already have Julian Edelman. We already have James White. So I don't want to go ahead and triple dip on the New England offense. So we're going to go ahead and pick another high upside player that I like for this season, and that is Mr. Allen Lazard. Now, I'm not big on the Lazard train. I'm not riding the Lazard train to the championship because we saw what happened last season with MBS and Geronimo Allison. We all hyped them up. We all got on our knees. We prayed to the fantasy gods. Please, Aaron Rodgers, throw these motherfuckers the ball. And you know what happened? Their offense was so run heavy. They just weren't throwing the ball to anyone besides Devontae Adams. But actually, they were throwing it to Allen Lazard, but they just weren't throwing it to the guys we drafted. So now we're drafting Allen Lazard in the 12th round to hope that he is the upside that we saw last year. But we're getting Allen Lazard at a discount. Last year, MVS and Geronimo Allison were top 10 round picks. Here, Lazard is going almost undrafted in a lot of leagues, but I want to go ahead and make sure I get him here with my 12th round selection of my final bench selection before we go ahead here and draft a quarterback. After we went with Lazard, the Buffalo Bills defense came off the board, followed by Austin Hooper, Rob Gronkowski, Carson Wentz, Sammy Watkins, Deshaun Jackson, T. Higgins, Matthew Stafford, Preston Williams, Jared Cook, Naheem Hines, Baker Mayfield, A.J. Dillon, Damian Harris, Justin Jackson, Jamal Williams, Rashad Perryman, Mike Gesicki, Carlos Hyde, and Darwin Thompson. So now it is time to make our quarterback pick here, and we're going to go ahead and take a shot on Mr. Cam Newton here. We waited a while. I see upside in Cam Newton. He was my bounce-back player on the thumbnail of today's video. I think Cam Newton bounces back. I don't expect him to have like a top 12 quarterback season, but he has the upside to bounce back for those great games. I think we see Cam Newton play good here, and I did draft another Patriot, so I kind of went against my ways, but hey, now we got the wombo combo of Mr. Cam Newton, and we could throw in Julian Edelman in the flex certain weeks as well as maybe James White. So after Cam Newton, we see Curtis Samuel come off the board, followed by Big Ben Roethlisberger. So now it's time to draft our kicker and defense. First, we go for a defense up against an offense that I think is not going to be humming super well week one, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the LA Chargers. And I think that rookie Joe Burrow is going to falter maybe a bit in this game, and the Chargers defense is already good. So for week one, that's my pick. And then the next week, I'm going to go ahead and dump them off, get the fuck out of here, and then pick up a new defense and stream every single week and make a video about them every single week so you guys know who to draft. Shout out to Hunter Renfrow, Kirk Cousins, and Daniel Jones, as well as Noah Fant for being the only players actually drafted here that are not kickers and defenses. And shout out to the guy going the pick before me, my old bitch lame, but my young Hoku, one of my favorite kickers in the NFL. Now it is time to draft our kicker. We're going to go with Kyami Fairbairn of the Houston Texans. If the Houston Texans fail to convert in the red zone and aren't looking super duper hot, then, hey, we are going to be able to see Fairbairn dagger in some kicks for our team. We got a 78 out of 100, but I don't give a damn because Kyle Yates is giving me a 90 out of 100. So thank you, Kyle Yates. If we look at our team is quarterback Cam Newton. Running backs are Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake. Our wide receiver is Adam Thielen and DJ Moore. Our tight end is Hayden Hurst. Our flex is David Montgomery. Our kicker is Kyami Fairbairn. Our defense is the LA Chargers. Our bench is comprised of DeAndre Swift, Julian Edelman, James White, Mecole Hardman, Antonio Gibson, and Allen Lazard. Thank you guys all for watching this video. If at any point you ended up enjoying, please make sure to slap that subscribe button down below. I put out content every single day like I preach throughout the whole video, and I want you guys to make sure that you are on the train so you guys can win that 2020 NFL Championship. Check out the Patreon as well down below. I love you all, and I'll see you motherfuckers tomorrow with AFC hot takes in the morning. Good boy!